Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries this evening. Well, I was going to say it's going to be an unusual show tonight, but they're all pretty unusual, wouldn't you agree? However, this one is a little bit dicey and on the sketchy side, so I do need to give a disclaimer. Although the videos are tagged as certain ones, adults only, I do want to give a disclaimer that this is very adult subject matter. As fascinating and entertaining it is as it is, and informative, it is adult material. Okay, so as promoted, this is going to sort of cover, scan, address, and describe, explain, explore what online behavior and activities were like during the 90s. Okay, so this is like way back. Yes, I'm older than Google. I'm older than the internet, believe it or not. We did exist before the internet. so, uh, oh my God. Okay, so first let me couch this by saying I have been for quite some time quite the prankster. Interpret that as you will. This has to do also with cruising. Okay, so let's also set that as an aside. Um, Add to that when my partner, the first great love of my life that passed away, as we all know, um, came into my life, he was equally as pranky. so, that was a very combustible combination. We had a fascination for character study, and I don't mean in some kind of sophisticated acting sense. We have just always been fascinated by things of absurd and obscure behavior and situations. Very quickly, he and I used to go to certain very, see, cruising in Los Angeles, perhaps I'll get into a whole show if it is of any interest to anybody, but it is a whole subculture. There are spots, there are places to this day, but much more in the 80s and in the 90s, where basically there is action in that region, area, specified designated location. And these are by the dozens throughout the county. So our pranksterishness, Tim and I, would lend itself to kind of obnoxious cruisers. I mean, whatever you want to call it, other people. We were not an open relationship by any means, and not into that, nor are Michael and I, which I will get to, our pranks. Just not into that. Partners I gravitate to are not into that. I'm like not a Sherry type of person. But I am a morbid prankster. So was Tim. So briefly, we would engage in stuff that I can't really mention about sort of obnoxious targets in cruisy, boring, field trips or field trips out of boredom, perhaps, in this pranky mode. And so there were obnoxious targets, if you will. We were young and attractive, fully of age, well, legal age. And there were just things, pranks that we would uh, employ upon these individuals that to us was completely hysterical within the context of a supposed hookup scenario. Now, when I reference hookups, I'm not necessarily referring to an act that has occurred. It is a noun or a verb if it's hooking up. So we all know what I'm talking about, of course, so this now sort of fell into the beginning of the internet. Ooh, surprise! No more driving around laughing and people watching. It's on computers. Now, I was taught computers by my husband in 1994. I had worked with computers prior to that, but it was all DOS and it was extremely time consuming with codes and notes and all kinds of things. Windows came, believe it or not, Stone Age stuff. Windows came into play with Apple. And my husband, knowing I knew nothing about computers, purchased an Apple Performa, which is a big old luggy thing with working tower and fans and all this crap, as they were in the beginning, gigantic monitors. Okay, so he sits me in front of the computer. Long story short, I learned computering by him basically having known very much about computers, sophisticated military computers. He said, just sit down and play with it. Close stuff up, open it. That's the X. Close it and play around. Do drop down, see what they say they do. Long story short, I'm a quick learner. So I'm in the computer. We had it in our living room, and it was a beautiful apartment. Oh my God, in West Hollywood, overlooked the city. And so there's the computer. So I'm playing around. So my first encounter with online, I guess, activity would be I would be sitting at that computer and I would hear bing, bing, pause, bing, pause, pause, bing. This was the gentleman underneath us in the apartment underneath us. I thought he was playing Pong. Now, Pong it was the first computer game. It was tennis, bouncing a ball back and forth, but that's exactly what it sounded like. Bing, bing, bing. And so I'm like, Michael, why is he playing Pong? And so it was explained to me that there was such a thing as AOL. America Online was the first sort of, maverick kind of, phenomenon that occurred on the internet, America Online. America Online was the platform to get on for anything, whether it was chatting, messaging, everything. Okay, it was all America Online. Now, America Online, as you will see in that preview, was this picture of a dude where there's no dude, and then there's a second box where the dude is running, and the third box has a bunch of happy people that he arrived there. Well, so you had to wait for this dude to move through these boxes. While you're doing that, you have to hear this screeching sound, static, screeching static, until you hope the dude moves over to the right. Sometimes if it doesn't connect, and it frequently would not connect, you have to start over and then click the dude to start the running shit all over again. Then you finally get on. So I discovered chat rooms, right? Oh boy, acting, dude. Mike and I had never had any like jealousy issues per se. It wasn't an open relationship, but stuff that might disturb other couples, like, oh, I find that guy attractive, or comments to that effect, or anything in that sort of arena, never really bothered us too much. We were so focused on each other that it was entertaining, and it was completely acceptable to appreciate beauty and all of that goes with that. So here I am on AOL in chat rooms, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is pretty personal shit that's flying around on this computer. Again, 1994. AOL was not very old, and AOL was the only game in town. So I'm playing with these chat rooms, and I'm making all of these completely amazing observations about this, what you're now used to, this sharing, this fast friend making. This sharing of just everything, and then these subgroups it's old news to you now, but it was it was betaing practically then, groups where you could go in specifically and discuss certain issues. And now I know what you're all thinking. This is going to lead into some sex party, and we're swingers and all this stuff. No, it was our nature. It was my nature. Much to my chagrin. I had been a prankster since, as you know, or can well imagine, since I was 15 and all that shenanigans. So, jump ahead. I'm now playing around with these chat rooms, amazed at the topics, the specificity of these groups, that they've been narrowed down to like a topic that is so finite within another finite topic of interest. So then we move and we move. And then, so I'm not playing around with computers online necessarily during this period of a few years, because my activity then on the computer was I was writing ultimately for 4 different magazines, what they call sort of rag mags, where in LA it was the only place you found out what was ladies' night where, what was happening anywhere. You had to pick up these free mags, but they were full of very tantalizing articles, and I ended up having at least one page per issue every week. So, so that was the only game in town. Like I said, picking up these free magazines. And then AOL came, and you were put into contact with people, and it was chatty. Now, in the original days, believe it or not, in like, I'm talking 94, a lot of it was chatty. We're not talking SEXy. It was, I mean, I'm not saying that wasn't going on, that hooking up wasn't going on in its fledgling days when the little seeds were sprouting, but it was very chat oriented. That's hence chat room. It was, driven by group discussion about very specific topics of interest. So, of course, we know where this all bled into. Then you had profiles. Then you had pictures attached to your profiles. Well, of course, you're giving personal information, showing your pictures. Yeah, where's it going to go, kids, right? So, all varieties of these things are happening, and I stopped writing for these magazines. I have to shift career-wise into writing to put food on the table. I don't have the luxury of writing all these articles. So then the focus shifted, but what's left? Recreational time and two pranksters. Because Michael has his own history of pranking. He drives me. He still drives me nuts with things that he thinks is funny, that is pranky, that I just completely don't think is funny, and I'm a prankster. So anyway, cut to a few apartments later, a few years done with magazines. So here we are again. I'm working like a dog. So is Mike. But we have this apartment. This is pre-Logan, way pre-Logan. And so there are these sites. There's the AOL. AOL starts to explode with lots of personally kind of talky activity, as you can, get from my inference. I was prone, there was a period of time, believe it or not, when I was like buff and bronzed and blue-eyed and blonde and all that stuff. And so during this period of time, I was literally working out different quadrants every friggin' day without fail. And I would be in the workout room, which was our office spare room / whatever, for hours on end. And I was on a Soloflex, which has a very strict kind of regimen. In certain frequencies, you can't lose steam. But there was the computer and there was AOL. Again, very chatty, passing pictures. Like, look at this wild picture I took of Anne Margaret, but I blacked her out. Guess who the performer is? Friends. And yes, you had friend lists, you could connect with people. You didn't have like these structured friend, archives like you have on Facebook and what have you. No followers, no Instagrammy stuff. This was communication connectivity. So then we're moving along, right? Okay, so then, there's more time to explore these character studies with this pranky subtext. And then I'm stuck with my husband, who's as bad as Tim in this pranky character observation curiosity. In fact, during that time, Michael and I, we would buy toys, lots of toys, but we would create very disturbing scenarios with the toys, combining them and doing things to the toys, and then making what's called a diorama, which is like a little setting of something that you look at sort of as an art piece. Well, these were so disturbing, I would never share them. I never took pictures of them, and there was only one person that ever saw them. Again, pranky. That was our recreation, was just being mischievous and darkly funny and pranky, and not quite as bad as Tim and I were, because we would our prank was to write lipstick all over your windshield if you were a dork. I mean, a jerk, a prick. Anyway, so here we are now in this different scenario. And AOL now has sort of kind of like moved, it's still around, but the whole AOL explosion of the pictures and the profiles led into, of course, buku hooking up. So this is when like the snowball, the avalanche of hooking up started happening with the advent and progression development of AOL. So then we've got pictures everywhere. And we've got trading information and hooking up everywhere. So now it's not just workout time. Mike and I are like, our ears are pricked up with all of this activity, right? In these very, I don't want to say nefarious. It's not nefarious, but uh, hmm, unorthodox, maybe, activities that were new to us. That we, as much as Michael knew about computers, we were new to the internet, as was many of us. This is still the 90s now, remember. Maybe now we're mid to late 90s. Okay, so let's say later 90s. So then there's this sudden advent of further hooking up. So now we're not listening to Pong like I thought we were in the beginning. Me, Mr. Computer Idiot, thinks his neighbor is playing Pong because he keeps hearing bing. Because remember the old, you've got mail. Well, you've got mail. You Google it, you'll know it. Is actually the message. If you turn the message off, it's ping or pong, which is what I thought the neighbor was playing, pong. Well, guess what? No, all kinds of shit was going on that I thought was Pong. No, no, no Pong. I mean, we're talking flashing pictures back and forth all over the county. People racing. Are you hosting? Meaning, can I come over? Or are you not hosting? And whoa, my God, pictures and fake pictures and all this stuff's flying around. Suddenly, what was a nice chatty little thing that started out in 93, 94, when my husband was teaching me to like go into these chat rooms about the equivalent of Harry Potter, I don't know, whatever today. And now it becomes this other monster creature where people want to do all kinds of things. I will tell you towards the end, it got so bad that easy to be shocked. No, I am not easy to be shocked. My husband, with what he's been through, no. Tim, mischievous Tim, that got me into this pranky, very hard to shock. Towards the end of our little episode, our period of pranky, before we really fell into our careers and didn't have time with any of this, and then we had a son, forget it, uh, was very, very disturbing. We were told things that I will never get out of my head. Um, Things about how things tasted and things you would never imagine with things. And then these things and these descriptions and identifications about what was going on in these people's heads as this sharing, this chatting turned into this avalanche of rapacious, libidinous, combustion. And man, I'm telling you, this shit that we heard, I thought I heard phone sex shit from doing 2 years of that. With the advent of this, I was like, what? What? You're sharing that shit with me? Oh my God, that was so meant for your head and your head only. Oh, you have no idea. So, to wrap things up, I guess. This AOL turned into sites like, I don't want to identify sites in case they either are still around, because that's a cardinal rule with this kind of stuff. You don't like say, oh, it was this side of the park where all the action was, but don't go there. So I'm not going to say it was something for something. That was a big one, something for something. And that was kind of one of the first kind of grinder type, grinders now. You're all used to grinder, like an industry, a mega conglomerate of, I don't know. I've never been on Grinder. Honestly, I don't know what it is. I don't even know if you have to subscribe to it. I don't know anything since these ancient something for something sites, these fledgling beginnings of these Grinder things. Tinder. This is and it really started within the LGBTQ plus. Actually, I'm sorry, didn't get that right, but LGBTQ community. I'm OG, sorry, don't always get it right. But it did start within that sort of, what do we want to call ourselves? Community? I don't know, communities. We're so all encompassing. We're so ahead of the time. We got all kinds of terms and names for everything. Sorry, guys. But anyway, not that we're a we. So then So then we're deeper diving into these character studies. Our curiosity is getting the better of our prankiness. Now, prankiness becomes morbid curiosity because we're reading things. Let's just, I think I'm allowed to say fetish. Okay, so y'all know what fetish is if you don't Google it. It was in the arena, let's just call it like uber fetish, mega matmos of different fetishes that never occurred to me. And I had done phone sex for a living as a woman for 2 years. I thought I heard everything. No, I hadn't. So, our morbid curiosity leads into monitoring, not religiously, these fledgling something for something sites that turn into full tilt boogie hooking up. It's no longer chatting. There ain't even any room for chat rooms. Maybe like, you know, I don't know, not even Google, but there were still chat rooms. But then whoosh, deep dive, okay? There was like GAY.com, obvious, but and those were kind of chat driven, but then these other ones. So we're to wrap things up, we're flippity floppiting through all these things, and it gets worse, and it gets deeper, and it gets more disturbing, and the prankiness starts to turn into shock, and then, like I said, and we're sending out these wacky pictures to wacky people thinking, and yeah, this is really amusing in the beginning. And then I don't want to say it got dark, but it kind of did. Like, when you start hearing deep fetish shit on these fledgling sites that the community standards were next to nothing, if anything, using furniture to accomplish this task, and what things tasted like in scenarios. So we stopped being so pranky. We stopped being so curious, and we moved on with our life. But that was the evolution of what y'all know as Grindr and current modern day chat room stuff, patterns, activities, the way it is technologically now versus 93, 94 through, I don't know, let's say 98. This is what it was like. This is what this sort of ocean that became hooking up online. That's that. Okay, we're at 22 minutes. I'm going to leave you alone with this adult material, and I don't know. Hope it was historically informative and entertaining. Make what you will. Okay, got everything scheduled for the rest of the week, and I'm hoping to have a special sort of 3-day thingy at the end, marathon of interviews, I'm hoping. But anyway, whatever it is, it's going to be wonderful, right? Right. Love you. Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for joining me, and don't do anything I wouldn't do, which says a lot on this episode because if I've never heard of somebody's hobby or fetish, that means that it's saying a lot. And at that time, it said a lot. Okay, bye.